becoming artists, like they have not even made it, and they're so stitched, like, oh, me, I don't fuck about cool. People are not see me, man, not dilute me brand. Within that time period where you're trying to get yourself known and heard, you have to put yourself out there.
You can create your music in your studio, in your bedroom, but it takes a lot of resources for the world to hear that song.
If you're just signed to a record label at the start and the record label does everything for you, they're pouring in the money, the resources, the people, the connections that you do not have. They're showing you how to do the content, your identity. That's how you realize some artists, like when they leave a record label or something, they can't even take their name. They have to change their name.
You see artists shifting their sound a little bit to sound Nigerian. And this is an ongoing debate about whether that is necessary.
You have to realize that as an artist, you're like an influencer, like you're influencing the minds, the thoughts, the culture of the people, and those that believe in your sound and aspire to be like you because of who you've become.
Welcome to Honestly Speaking, the podcast where we have honest conversations about the issues shaping our lives. I'm your host, Antonia Howard. A lot of the time, we celebrate creative success without pausing to ask what it actually takes to get there. Today's conversation is about some of the realities behind creative careers, not just the art we see, but the labor, the pressure, the identities that shape how that work is perceived. Now, in Sierra Leone, there's a story we often tell ourselves, that the market is small, the opportunities are limited, and that to really make it, you have to go somewhere bigger, somewhere with more structure, more audience, more possibilities. But what we don't talk about enough is what that move actually demands, professionally, emotionally, personally. And so my guest today is a Sierra Leonean artist living and working in Ghana, navigating the music scene there. And she is none other than the amazingly talented Dove Nicol.
Hello, Antonia.
Welcome to Honestly Speaking.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I'm absolutely happy to have you on the podcast. I think where we can start is just there, you choosing to pursue music in Ghana.
Yeah.
As I said in my intro, a lot of the times when we talk about developing a creative career, anything in the creative in Sierra Leone, we often have this conversation about, salon too small, the market this, and then. And most people's inkling is to pursue it elsewhere, or most people's perception is that if you're elsewhere, it will be easier. Yes. I wonder if that's true for you. And the question is, why did you decide to take Ghana as your base?
Okay. So for me, it wasn't more of a decision. It's something that naturally just happened. Because when I finished school here in Sierra Leone, secondary school, I was in the UK for a year, and then I went to Ghana. So I moved to Ghana, UK visa issues and stuff like that. So when I moved to Ghana, I was supposed to go back to the UK. I was just supposed to spend a year there, but then, I got introduced to the industry there. At the time, the industry was, just starting up, the creativity, the nightlife, students, we love all of that. And I was like, wow, like it brought me back to myself, to music. Because music is something I'd always done, even where I'd be at school, I'd go Apex, Kington Bridge. I remember there's this studio at Kington Bridge. I'll be go record it. That's why I met Star Z for the first time. So I'll be there with Star Z and all of these artists. So when I went to the UK, I kind of forgot about the musical side of myself. I was just focused on law. Okay, I came here for my studies. Let me focus on that. So going back to Ghana kind of brought me back to center and made me realize that, oh, wow, I actually have a passion for this. Let me keep on exploring it. So I started with, a lot of live band performances, and I kind of got known for that. And then I did like a cover for Davido's If at the time in one of my classrooms. One of my friends was holding the lights and the other one was taking a video. And then the video blew up in YouTube. At the time, it was like 2019, 2020. It had like 50,000 views. So I started doing like university performances and stuff like that. I'm like, maybe, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that's kind of what happened. And since I did uni there, it was easier because a lot of people knew me since I was in uni doing music. So it just made it easier for me to just transition into an artist, in Ghana.
So if I hear you correctly, it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision to pursue music in Ghana. It was more like, okay, this is where I am at the moment.
Yes.
This is where I study. I have a network here.
Yes.
And I might as well explore what the opportunities are
basically.
Right in Ghana.
Yeah.
And how was that for you as a Sierra Leonean? And I think I've read somewhere as well that you also have a Nigerian background or Nigerian heritage. How was that for you navigating your identity as a Sierra Leonean with Nigerian heritage, pursuing music in Ghana?
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say I really appreciate about Ghana is culturally they're very acceptant. So it doesn't necessarily matter where you're from. They always love to receive like people from different countries and stuff like that. And even when I was going to school, like there were a lot of Sierra Leoneans in my school. So it was easy for me to often, speak Creole. I felt like at home. And Ghana is just like, it has this very peaceful, motherly nature about it. So I just felt more calm and, in tune. So that also kind of helped me transition while I was in school. And then when I made that decision to now enter the music properly and got my first management team, then now I was like, okay, we need to figure out what is my brand, like who I am. Now crafting, the image of Dove Nicol. That's when I really saw the industry and I was like, whoa, this is way different than, the playing around like, I want to do music. And now the business side of it was like,
Yeah, and we'll get to talk about the business side of it as well, because this is very important for people who are interested in pursuing careers in the creative sector.
Yeah.
But the question I want to ask, what I want to know is, when you started building this brand, was it a complex decision about how to frame your identity as an artist? Like where you come from, how do you define your sound? Did you have to think about whether you go sing Creole inside your music or you mix? Like what was that conversation like, and what were the things you had to think about, or what were you told?
Yeah. Well, it was a process. It did take a while. It took a lot of time to be able to find that identity because, as you rightfully said, I also have Nigerian heritage from my father's side. My father's father is Nigerian. My stepdad as well that I grew up with coming up since I was 3 years old is also Nigerian. So I had a lot of that growing up. We used to travel to Lagos as kids and spend holiday there. So I had that side of me, and I'd been in Ghana for a while, and I also, attached myself with that. So it was in terms of building the identity, I struggled for a while. I'm like, do I, refer to myself as a Ghanaian, Sierra Leonean, Nigerian, or is it just a Sierra Leonean, But I've come to terms with it, the Sierra Leonean is who I am, Ghana is my base, and, I have a Nigerian heritage, but I don't put all of that now. I just say a Sierra Leonean artist based in Ghana. So it took a while for me to come to terms with that because, a lot of people had their own opinions of what they felt like would be best to sell you. Like, okay, maybe if you use your Nigerian side, it would be easier to sell you in the Nigerian market. Oh, but since you're in Ghana, then use the Ghanaian side so that it's easier for you to appeal to the Ghana base since you're living in Ghana, but then it's like, okay, what about my people? So, but one thing I always appreciated about my sound and my music is my identity as a Sierra Leonean was always there because in my music, I always spoke Creole. So sometimes when people approach me and say, I really love your pidgin, but it's a bit different. Some of the words, I can't really hear it. Or some people be like, oh, your pidgin sounds like patois. Like, what kind of pidgin is that? And I'm like, oh, it's Sierra Leonean. So that made me realize that, me being Sierra Leonean is a unique trait for this community.
I just wanted to ask that. Did you feel pressure to cave in? Because we cannot argue that Nigeria has a bigger market. They have much more people than Sierra Leone. And it is a trend now you would see across different African countries, and I will stick to Sierra Leone because this is where I am, where you see artists shifting their sound a little bit to sound Nigerian.
Yeah.
And this is an ongoing debate about whether that is necessary, because we've seen artists in Sierra Leone, artists like Drizzlick, who owned Creole and took that to where he is at right now. He's recognized and he's seen as one of the most successful young artists in Sierra Leone. But did you feel that pressure to cave in, and did you have to push back?
At some point, I would say yes, because when I just started, as I said, I was trying to find my sound. You know, my first management at the time really wanted me to, you know, be within the Afrobeats, you know, genre. And I would say Afrobeats is more Nigerian, if anything. I mean, although it started from Ghana, the high life, and then Fela Kuti is the one that took it to Nigeria and then made it into Afrobeats. It is more Nigerian now than Ghanaian, if anything. So I started out with, you know, doing more like Afrobeat sounds. I for 3 years I was trying to release an EP, kept on releasing, like creating EPs, like different EPs, all within the like Afro and Amapiano sounds, which were very good hit songs, because that's what my manager wanted at the time. You need a hit song so that you can blow. But I felt like I wasn't being myself, because at the root of it, I am a singer. So when I started singing, I always loved or leaned towards like jazz, ballads, you know. But even in Sierra Leone back then, when I was in school and I would sing these slow songs, as people would say, it's like, this song if I know, but this song I go make her feel for sleep. This song now I go to listen before I go sleep, you know. So it was like, okay, like you know, go make gumbe song to people to go dance, you know. This song where they make it too slow, you know. So for some time I was like, okay, maybe I can't do that, you know. I have to do the more dancey, upbeat, and I'll do that and people love it too. But it's like, I don't know if this is really me. So I feel like that's where the identity of my EP is born, the EP that I just released this year. Well, last year in December, the 13th of December. So it's like a fusion of me, like, you know, so I have ballads in there, jazz, R&B, amapiano. So it kind of stretches out because it shows my versatility. So each song is a different genre in itself. And I did it that way so that people can see the expansiveness of my artistry. And then from there, I can now tap into different genres. So I'll be like, okay, maybe let me do a EP on Afrobeats, and then I'll do that. Or let me do an EP on Amapiano or on R&B, so that you can see the diversity of my sound. So,
is it a must for artists to do commercial music, if I can put it that way? Listening to you talk about like what your manager wanted, your manager knows that people would listen to, you know, the music that they'll dance to,
yes.
and that music would be played more often and in more places, and that's what would bring the money. But what is your opinion? Do artists who do not necessarily relate to that kind of music still have to, in one way or the other, dabble in that, so that they then get the attention and the audience, and then bring people into what they truly prefer, the kind of music they truly prefer making?
I feel like it depends. It depends on the artist. It depends on their direction and where they're trying to go. Because some people will tell you that, oh, you don't have the fame now, so do what people like, so that when you get the fame, you can now do what you want. But sometimes it can be hard, because now they're used to that sound. So when you change, it's like, what is this? We don't know you for this, you know? Or some people will take the, you know, harder route and be like, you know, I'm just going to be true to myself and do what I want. So examples of that would be like Amare. She's always been alternative in the Ghanaian scene. You know, she's always made music that is very alternative from the Ghanaian type of sound. And now she's globally recognized. But it took her a longer time because she had to grow her audience, but she was true to her identity. So at the end of the day, I feel like finding your identity as an artist is very important, so that you can now craft yourself around that personality. And then the community will come, because at the end of the day, I feel like it's about community building. And there are people out there that like resonate with your sound. If there's something there in you that you feel like you need to put out, there's definitely an audience for it. It's just about the longevity of it. Do you want to be a fast rise artist, have a hit song, 1 2 songs, and then cannot proceed with making another hit song? Because a lot of artists suffer from that as well. You might have one big song, the song is bigger than you, people don't even know your face or your name, and you cannot keep up with it, and then you just go off the scale. Or do you want to grow a community wherein like they get to know you, build from your sound, and then from that community you now attach yourself to other artists that are bigger? So I feel like it's based on perspectives, really.
And how has that journey been for you, crafting this identity and building your community? I know you have an EP out now, so that journey leading up to the EP, to what songs you put in the EP, to the title of the EP.
Yeah. Oh, it's been a long journey, honestly. It's been a long journey because I started, this particular EP, I started it last year, so it's been a year in the works. I started it in 2024 August. That's when I started recording, and then moved to Ghana. So I was in Sierra Leone. I finished my law school, and after finishing law school, I was like, I feel like something is missing. I need to go back to my music, and then went back to music, and everything I experienced during that process is what I poured into this EP. Deciding on the name of the EP, I felt came from the fact that, it's self-titled, by the way, Dove Nicol. So I wanted people to see the embodiment of myself in it, because this was no longer me trying to fulfill other people's needs of what they felt like I should do, and me exploring the multifaceted dimensions of who I am. There's this particular song, they're Reckless. It gives a very 90s disco type of feel. So a lot of people that love old music, like, wow, like this sounds like an old soul singing this type of song, or Sky, which is like more drum and bass and garage music that kind of like tends to fill the gap for more like UK type of like people. So a lot of people in the UK love that song. So I feel like it resonates with different crowds, and I feel like that's what I wanted people to see, that I cannot be put in a box. I'm a very versatile artist, so at least my first body of work should embody that, and then I can now branch out into.
Is it harder to, I'm assuming you've had conversations with people you work with, including your first manager. Is it harder to market an artist who is multifaceted, who is versatile, than someone who just does one type of music and is not necessarily looking to, create an identity or let people know who they really are? What do you think? Is it harder to market versatile artists?
That's a good question. I don't know, to be honest. I think it depends, because like someone, for like example, Drake, I would feel like he's like very multifaceted. He's made so many different albums. He started off as a rapper, and then he became a singer, and now he's like a lover boy, and he's making R&B music. Even Rema, Rema came, we knew him so Rema, for instance, if you go back to his very first EP, you'd realize there are different sounds in there. He had some trap songs in there, he still had Afro beats, but he was showing you that, I can do all of these things. So when he now diversified to his Ozeba era, I'm sure at first, within the first few months, people were shocked, like, Rema, what rubbish is this? I remember on Twitter and Instagram, people are like, please, who advised Rema to release this song? It's not nice at all. And then months later, everyone was about. So it's like, you can really never please people. People are always going to have opinions, You just have to be yourself. And I feel like that's the route I decided to take, in that I decided to stay true to my versatility, which will later on expand. So it means that in the long run, as an artist, I do believe that I'll have a longevity, because it will now be easy for me to, mold myself within the industry that I'll find ourselves. Because while the industry keeps on going, there are new sounds and new eras, because most of the American artists now are trying to do Afrobeats. Chris Brown is doing Afrobeats. And he's still relevant. It's still him, but in an Afrobeats version. So I feel like that kind of helps when you're versatile enough. Like, it's like you're flexible. You don't, you're not one way. So it's easy for you to form. It's like water. It takes the shape of whatever it's in. It's easy for you to shape take the shape of whatever you're in, but still remain true to yourself. So I feel like at the end of the day, identity is very important. Yeah.
Right. I agree with that. I relate more with artists who own who they are. And if you're someone who listens to albums and not just, singles released by artists, you get to know a little bit more about how artists think, and, you just get to know them a little bit more beyond the hit singles. And so in terms of business, what is something that aspiring musicians or artists, what should they bear in mind when it comes to making it in music? I ask that because even in my conversation with Drizzlick months ago, last year, this is something we don't think about often enough. We, as creatives, sometimes the business of it comes last, because all you want to do really is focus on the creative side of it, because that's your strength. That's if you're someone who is creative, you don't want to think about money. You don't want to think about anything administrative.
Exactly.
But what is the lesson, or what is the steep learning curve for you? Like, what did you have to learn approaching a career in music?
Well, first of all, for me, the business side, I had to learn very hard lessons that cost me a lot of money. So my mistakes have been very expensive when it comes to the business side of music, because, as you said, it's like I'm an artist. Oh, I just need to focus on that. I have someone in the background that is focused on the money and where we're putting the money, and and that was not the best decision for me, because it really cost me a lot, because a lot of people want to do things their way, and they will take what they can from what you're getting, and at the end of the day you realize that this doesn't equate to this. Releasing this EP, I had to be in the forefront of a lot of the administrative decisions. I think me being a lawyer as well really helped, because there are a lot of contractual agreements to the music side, splits agreements, composition rights, need to know about publishing, you need to be signed to a publisher. I know a lot of artists don't know these things. So as much as I'm a Sierra Leonean, I'm back home and I really want to caving into, the home crowd knowing me. I feel like Ghana was a process I needed to go through for me to understand the business aspect of music, because back there I have to do all of these things, and it can be very difficult because contractually a lot of people want to have one up on you and feel like, oh, you don't know anything about it, so I can take advantage of this person. Someone saying that, oh, I deserve to have 20% of this, your work and all of that. It's like, how do I make sure that I understand the nitty-gritties of these things? So as an artist, I feel like it's very important for you to understand the business side, even being involved in it, because then when you now have a manager or a business manager, you understand the role they're supposed to play and if they're playing it right, because you have been in that position for yourself. So being an artist, you have to be so many things. I think that's what I appreciate about being an independent artist. I mean, it's very difficult, but I feel like it's a beautiful learning curve, because when the record deals come in and the record labels come in, you understand, the processes that are involved, and you have more value to give. It's like, okay, I know that this has to be this way, so why is this happening this way, and why, So it's very difficult, but yeah, it's a beautiful experience.
And it's that difficulty that many people don't want to face.
No.
People don't want to go it alone, because they understand that it takes a lot of resources to make an artist.
Yes.
You can create your music in your studio, in your bedroom, whatever, but it takes a lot of resources for the world to hear that song, and for your creativity to be appreciated. You talked about the upside of being an independent artist.
Yeah.
It's both bitter and sweet because you do get to learn a lot playing these roles for yourself, but it's a lot of hard work because whilst you're doing that, your creativity needs to be at peak. You need to also create the thing that you're selling, the thing that you want people to see or hear, your music. For young artists in Sierra Leone, aspiring artists who do not necessarily want to go it alone, would you advise that they do that? Would you advise being an independent artist rather than being signed to a label, having a whole management and things like that? Or if the structures exist and the agreement is favorable, would you recommend being signed to a label rather than going it alone?
Independently. Well, I think I agree with the last part you said. If the structures exist and the agreement is favorable, definitely. But then you have to have someone in your team that understands these things and knows that you're getting into a good deal. And at the end of the day, it's also about having a team, because most times the artist is the face, but it's a bigger, broader team of people. A lot of people pouring into this one person, into making sure that this building, because I see it like a building, flourishes. Have a lot of customers, promoting it so people can come to this building and all of that. So I feel like yes, it is good for you to understand the business side of music as an artist, because we tend to just want to be creatives, and it's like, I can't, bother myself with that. I have a business manager or a manager that can take care of all of these things, but you have to be involved in every single facet of it. That's what makes it easier for you, because if you're just signed to a record label at the start and the record label does everything for you, at the end of the day, you will not really see much profit from it, because they're doing everything, so they get a larger share. Most artists will see it as, it's an unfair deal. It is in retrospect, but in hindsight, because you haven't even created that for yourself, they're pouring in the money, the resources, the people, the connections that you do not have. They're showing you how to do the content, your identity. That's how you realize some artists, like when they leave a record label or something, they can't even take their name. They have to change their name. And now it's like, wow, what do I do? I think something that happened to Kiss Daniel. He had to change his name from Kiss Daniel to Kiss Daniel. Or what's his name? Buju to BNXN.
There's also this rapper, I've forgotten her name. I think Cynthia Morgan.
Oh my God, I used to love Cynthia Morgan so much. Yeah. And she had to change her whole name. I think she's called Melissa. I've forgotten the name now.
Something like that. Monica, Melissa.
Yeah,
something.
and she hasn't. They say she's been trying. Even when I went to Nigeria, I was asking people in the industry that, like, she's been trying and it hasn't been working. And she released an Amapiano song, when Amapiano was a thing, but that didn't hit either. So now you have to now figure out, okay, who am I? So as much as this road of being an independent artist is more difficult, I feel like it's important, so that the lessons you learn stay with you for life. And it makes you stronger, and it makes you discern. Like, it gives you like a spirit of discernment to know that who's right for me or who's not. Because as Saz said, I saw this quote on Twitter by Saz. He's a music producer. It's like 19 lessons I've...
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
19 lessons I've learned for 19 years. And the first one really stuck with me, like, where people come to you, they're friends with you, but not just, because of who you are, but what they want to take from you. So you have to be able to discern who wants to be a real friend and who is there for their own, like, opportunities and stuff like that. So having value is always important. That's what I've realized. Your value as an artist is important. So if you're able to build that value and then get signed, you're in a better position,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, any career that you want to be successful in is hard to navigate.
Yeah.
If you want to break the boundaries and do more than what's already been done. As a young woman,
Yes.
in music, in the creative space. Uh, do you see double standards, or are there any unique challenges for young women who are trying to make it in music or in the creative space?
Definitely a lot, and I would say that like even with me that I would thank God that my parents have been supportive when it comes to financially supporting my music and what I've been through. I just imagine women that don't even have the resources what they have to go through, because even with me that I was the one putting in the money to make sure that okay, I can get this person to do this and get that person to do that. You would see a lot of men trying to still take control of who you are, what you're supposed to be. Most men in the creative industry would assume that, oh, you're a woman, you don't know what to do. Let me be the one to steer the wheel for you. So that's something I had to learn for myself, because at some point I was like, okay, well, I don't really know. These people are professionals, so I'll allow them to do it. And then you realize that, but wait a minute. I'm the one in control here. I'm putting in the money, I'm putting in the resources, and it is my name on the line. So why am I doing something someone else wants from me? So it makes me realize that, okay, I need to, be more in control of what I want to do. And it's a difficult process, because even like coming to that power alone, even when you have the power, can be difficult for a lot of women, because they don't feel like they can do it by themselves. And one thing about the music as well is a lot of people feel like, oh, they're experts and professionals that understand it. There are a lot of people that started this thing without being experts. It's just their passion and discipline that got them there. You can have someone that their best friend is their manager and they make it. So what sets them aside from someone that's a professional? Because even in Ghana, there are some points that I'd go to a lot of professionals like, okay, I want you to assist me with this and this and this, and at the end of the day, they don't fall through with the commitments that they say they can bring to the table. But then someone that is a friend that is just passionate and believes in you can make more moves for you than someone that says they're a professional. So it's also highlighting those differences and seeing what works and what doesn't. So I feel like, if anything, being in the music industry has really opened me up, to really understand life and people. Even more than the professional scene, because as a lawyer, I don't know if I haven't been in the legal field for too long, but the life experiences I've learned just by being an artist is like, whoa, And I really wish people can see artists as more than just, oh, this person, I just sing, normally they sing, serious, and all of that. Yeah, they just sing and just and come what's in net, and then no, it's so much more than that, because there's so much that happens behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah, and that's what this conversation is really about, just opening it up to the other things that we don't necessarily pay attention to. It has come up multiple times every time I have a conversation with someone who is in the creative space, be it, musicians, actors, actresses, playwrights. And we often talk about how much work that goes on behind the scenes people don't see, people don't often take into consideration. How do you stay grounded?
Yeah, for me, I feel like through this whole journey, it's really been faith, your faith in yourself, in God, first of all, because it gets to a point that you're so drained that there's nothing else left in you. It's like, wow, who do I turn to, and you realize your spirituality, so music has really made me very spiritual. It's made me so spiritual, and it's crazy because I never thought I would find myself so spiritually, evolved through music. Even the journey of creating my EP, I feel like was a very spiritual journey, because for every single song I wanted to record, it's almost like I had to leave the experience before I could even write the song and then bring it to life. So I feel like having that groundedness in who you are, what you believe in, and coming back to that. For me, also one thing that keeps me very centered, meditation. I try to meditate a lot. It kind of clears out the noise, especially during the time that there's a lot of noise. During the few days listening before my EP was released, oh my God, it felt like I was in a boiling pot, like I was in a pressure cooker. So much happening. Someone coming from here, slandering me with contract, telling me that you cannot release this, or like I will sue you for this. This one say you owe me $2,000 for this, because like, things that you didn't agree on. I said, oh my God, what do I do? How do I navigate this? Call my friends that are lawyers, try to have like a conversation with them, see how we go. Like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of pressure. And then the project is finally out, and it's like, whew, I can breathe. It's like, oh no, you have to promote it. And I was like, okay, get performances, look for gigs, go out there from day to day. So it's a lot of work. So I think that having a spiritual system of groundedness, and for me also family, family always being there. I know I haven't been home, but calling my mom or my sister and telling them that, oh, this is what is happening, and it's like, having that support system really, really, really helps. So as a musician, I think that having that support system is also very important, because sometimes, although you have people there, it feels like you're alone, because it gets to a time where like you're in the spotlight, but you feel lonely. You feel like no one is there for you. You feel like everyone around you is fake. They're only there because of what you have. So having your true people from the start really grounds you. And that's what I've come to love and appreciate. So when I came back home and I met my friends that haven't met in a long time, I was so happy to see them. And I'm sure in their minds like, Vanessa, I have to say, they make big part now, but it's like, I'm so happy to see a familiar face, because everything I'm doing out there is business for me, so establishing those differences as well is something I've realized, that the music industry, like, you have to differentiate who's your friend and who is a business colleague. Sometimes when you try to mix the two, it never really,
doesn't work out well.
Yes.
They say don't mix business with pleasure.
Yeah, and I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah. As we wrap up the conversation, I think one thing I want you to talk about is what do young Sierra Leonean artists, aspiring artists, need to consider? What do young Sierra Leonean artists need to consider? What do they need to think about when pursuing a career in music? And I ask that with context about choosing your base. As I started in the intro, most people think the market here is small. There's very limited, if it exists, structure, limited support systems, and just generally people think there's limited opportunities. But we see artists breaking the ceiling anyway. We see people who have done it. So I don't think that reality is being downplayed, but still there are undeniable facts. We cannot deny the fact that Nigeria or Ghana is bigger. We cannot deny the fact that they have better structures when it comes to creative careers. But beyond surface level, what do young aspiring artists need to think about deeply?
Wanting to be a musician in Sierra Leone. Well, I feel like what they have to really think about deeply is who they see themselves as and what they're trying to, like, the influence they're trying to create, because you have to realize that as an artist, you're like an influencer, like you're influencing the minds, the thoughts, the culture of the people, and those that believe in your sound and aspire to be like you because of who you've become. And people like Drizzy Lake, the therapist, has made it easy for us to realize that it's also about building your fan base, a community. Because, before Therapist released his, song that made him blue all over, he was big in Sierra Leone, through TikTok, so he's known, he had created that for himself. And I feel like as Sierra Leonean, that's what we can hone into, because we don't have that structure wherein you can have someone to invest millions of dollars into you and put that millions of dollars into making one song blow. I saw this interview where Don Jazzy was talking about Rema's Calm Down, that they invested about $2 million into making Calm Down the hit song that it was, and you can't say, okay, because I don't have that $2 million, I can't do music. You have to start from somewhere, So put yourself out there as much as possible. Networking is very important. A lot of artists, upcoming artists, like they have not even made it and they're so stushed, like, me, I not for come up cool. People are not see me, man. Not dilute me brand, I need for, take tail side, they go and all of that. I mean, that also counts. Yes, I understand that perspective. But it's like within that time period where you're trying to get yourself known and heard, you have to put yourself out there. You have to get people to know you. You have to be more like open-minded and, approach people. Sometimes people can be a bit reserved and not know what to do, but you have to sell yourself as an artist. It's a business. You have to sell yourself and get people to know you and become comfortable with the brand enough to know the brand that when they see it on a shelf, they're like, oh yes, I know this brand. I'll buy this because, yeah, I've seen this so many times and it is like a credible brand. So building that credibility for yourself, I feel like is very important, and it adds so much value to you so that when people come to you, the conversation shifts to, okay, I will do this for you, and then, you will give this back to me in return to what do you think I can do to help you to further what you're already doing. So I feel like that step of, starting, is the important step, because starting is very important.
Yeah. And as you've now released this EP, what is the big message that you're telling about Dove Nicol?
That's a good one. What's the big message I'm telling about Dove Nicol? I'm telling people that I am a woman that is multifaceted. I have a lot of layers in me. Even the EP, as I said, it involves duality. So Dove and Nicol. So it's a coming together of my light and my dark side. So I feel like everyone has their light and their shadow, Dove is a representation of my good traits, like the sweet side, like my more feminine aspects, my sensuality. So I have songs in there that are very sensual. And then Nicol is my more assertive side. So it's the more masculine side of me. And the bringing together of the two, which encompasses my higher self, because I feel like during the process of this EP, one thing I kept on saying to myself is like, I want to be that higher version of myself. Who is this person? I'd love to meet her. So I was like, Dove Nicol represents the two becoming one. And I want to become that person so that I can not only know myself fully, but when I do, it's easy for me to fully express the light that is inside of me in terms of, bringing people closer to who they are. Because with fully embracing yourself, you help others to become themselves. So I just want to be that source of inspiration for other people to look up to and say, yes, I can do this too. Oh my God, I'm picking as look what you don't do. Myself, I'm going to do it, So I just want to be a better version of myself, really.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. So I'm looking forward to the many, many more great things that I know you would do. All right. Well, I think this is where we'll end the conversation. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Honestly Speaking. Thank you for listening and being a part of these important conversations. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, please like and share. And if you're feeling inspired, do leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. And of course, carry on the conversation online. Share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas using #HonestlySpeakingSL. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay honest.